Chief and CDOTrends. I like to listen, I like to report. And so I will be asking panelists who would be the experts who will be letting me know what they think about the topic. Let me start first with Jade Lee. He'll be the General Manager for Analytics and Technology Applications. He's from Chow Tai Fook. Manlee Chan, joining from Samsonite. She's the VP of IT and Digital Technology for Asia. And then we have Alex Henshaw, who's beaming in all the way from Europe. He's a Senior Manager for Segment Marketing at Equinix. So we have three different industry segments, and we will have three different opinions. So I hope that everybody will enjoy and learn from this. And if you do have specific questions, please do use the Q&A feature, and we will be following and moderating those questions. Keep it simple and keep it nice, guys. So maybe start with the first question. Every analyst has talked about the acceleration of digital transformation. But what does that actually mean for chief digital officers? What has really changed? Is it the adoption rate after COVID-19, or was it the operationalization of digital transformation projects? Maybe I can start with Manlee. Manlee.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, definitely. The adoption rate has dramatically accelerated. So a lot of work from home, video conferencing, replacing face-to-face meeting, and a lot of people starting to use digital signature and approval and cloud storage, etc. All of the technology were actually there before the pandemic, but the pandemic changed how people, how enthusiastic people use those. And then it's very good that people started to feel it's not too bad to have like this sort of a big meeting virtually. We've seen a lot of benefits in that. And also in terms of consumer behavior, people moving online much more. In the sense that we're very lucky that we spend a lot of effort in e-commerce and digital technology in the past few years. So we're kind of in a good position and we don't have to scramble to make any change.
Okay, that's great. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, as you develop the IT infrastructure and you actually manage the digital initiatives, has there been a shift between outward looking, which is more customer centric, to employee centric digital initiatives over COVID-19?
The outward-looking, consumer-centric shift has happened for a long time, right? It's not something all of a sudden changed. And we definitely see that the pandemic affected our brick-and-mortar store much, much more than our online store. So there's not such a shift in terms of strategy, but in terms of digital transformation, we definitely see inside the organization, you see a lot of recognition and adoption.
Okay. And maybe I'll bring in Jade. Jade, what about you in Chow Tai Fook? As a luxury label, there's definitely a shift in the way you operate.
Yes, I think we like what you mentioned previously, the customer-centric and staff-centric. To us, we try to merge customer and our staff in a digital way, connections. So because our shops are being closed during the social issues or even pandemic, but our staff is not stopping. So we change our way to connect with our own loyalty programs members on still having business with them using some latest technology. So the way not just online, we call it in the past we call it social commerce, but right now we use all those digital tools to serve our customers in a good way. Yeah.
How just as a side question, how important is social commerce now after the pandemic?
It is I cannot tell the exact numbers, but right now lots of our online transaction not start from the customer journey, not from them. They go into the website. It starts from our staff. So the customers will come to our staff directly using the social tools, social messengers tools, and then we close business over there. So it's quite important. And then we also transform our offline process to let our customer journey extend using the social commerce tools. So this is very important now. I think it's a new channel that we will spend a lot over there.
Okay, thank you. I would like to bring in now Alex. Alex, I hope it's not too early for you, but I'd like to hear from your side as you actually work with customers. How has the operationalization of digital transformation actually impacted the way companies look at the way they look at infrastructure, and that's the way they do look at digital spend?
Well, it's interesting because what we saw over this period, and we actually did released a global interconnection index, which we do as a study of interconnection across for digital transformation. We just released volume 4 recently, which took into consideration the COVID situation. But what we found is that the organizations which have already got a very digital infrastructure were able to adapt very quickly because they were able to, they had the processes in place and the infrastructure to back it up, so they could scale very quickly to change the way they do their business. But organizations that were behind in the digital transformation struggled to build capacity and meet demands of the remote workforce. So we saw a lot of scrambling around. We also saw there was additional pressure on network providers and cloud and SaaS vendors to meet increasing demand. So we saw a lot of growth in that area. A lot more capacity was built from all the major NSPs around the region. So we saw, a lot of shift of the way they normally do business, and in fact it sped up the some of this transformation work that was already in place, but it just made it more essential that they got that happening.
Okay, that's a good base in which we can actually talk about the rest of our discussion. So Manlee, maybe I'll come back to you. We are looking at project timeframes. When before COVID, 3-year timeframes is quite the norm. I mean, we have 1-year timeframe, 3-year timeframes. Yeah. Has that really shortened to 1 week to 1 month now?
Absolutely, yes. It's not desirable to have the 3 years long project because really everything is changing so fast. You don't know when you develop something, whether it will be still applicable or not. So I think in terms of project selections already changed, right? So we have to adopt an approach that starts small, experimental. If it works, roll it out, and make it more complicated. It's basically an agile approach in terms of project selection, but also in terms of how we manage project as well. Because in the past we're very traditional, pretty good at waterfall. We have big projects and all this documentation and so now it's also, we also have to adapt to this change and then use agile framework in all of our projects. Let the business decide what they want us to develop in each sprint. So that helps us to prioritize.
Moving, you mentioned quite a very interesting point, moving from waterfall to agile. How did you do that? Because it's actually not an easy movement at all. You need to have expertise, you need to have scrum masters, you need to get people to be trained in agile methodology. So how did you make the shift?
Yeah, so I think this is a good question. Actually, all of us are really traditional trained to do waterfall, but when you first look at agile, it's quite scary because all of these jargons are different, etc. And also in this cut down budget time frame, it's impossible to get a scrum master and get someone to train us. But what we do is a very pragmatic approach, is to take in the agile principle, change the jargon into something that people understand very easily. So I'm not going to use a scrum master, but basically it's almost like a project manager. you don't have to follow to the T of all of the Scrum practice and artifact, but you're taking the Scrum principle and say basically changing from with the waterfall is basically limiting scope, and you kind of assume that you know the scope and so you can plan the project, but now it's not the scope. The scope can change. What we develop can change, but we are limiting the time frame. Time is money, time is resource, right? We're limiting the resource, let the scope change. So that's a fundamental change in the psychology of the whole IT team. So, and then we make it simple. Instead of sprint, or just tell people that this is a time bucket. Utilize it as much as you can. Utilize our time and allocate people's time in this time bucket.
I'd like to bring in Alex. Alex, from your perspective, infrastructure spend is actually a long-term project for a lot of companies. Has that shifted, and how are you from your end actually adapting to the way people are looking at shorter time frames?
I think for most organizations, they need to, we talk about Agile, they need to be able to have Agile infrastructure to sort of cope with change. And I think, as I mentioned before, if they've put the building blocks in place to start that digital transformation journey, like the network infrastructure, to make them more adaptable. Most people are used to cloud and consumption-based computing, where they can spin up environments very quickly. But the network is sort of lagged behind in some respects to be able to do that across multiple cloud providers, across SaaS providers. So what we've seen is that companies are rethinking the way their strategies going forward about using more SaaS providers for their core functions and business processes. And it's about building that infrastructure which allows you to connect all those things together, because it's a multiples of connectivity between providers, between supply chain partners. So this is where we see a lot of investment coming into thinking about how I'm going to make it all work, because it's not just a monolithic application like in previous years. They had a sort of a monolithic application which would be typically running on an on-premise sort of data center. That's not the case anymore. We have applications which span across multiple clouds, and also maybe pulling data sources which are not necessarily in the same place. So it becomes a much more complex environment to be able to navigate. So building that connectivity is really, really key for making it all work together.
Thank you. And Manlee, probably what you mentioned earlier was that you were already along that journey, so you probably helped that when COVID struck.
Yeah, I think because we always have hybrid solution. We have a bit of cloud, and we basically, in the past, we most of the applications are on premise. But with COVID-19, we leaning towards, in fact, we're moving all the new projects to cloud, because you can spin up server much faster. If it works, you use it. If it doesn't work, just you shut it down. So yeah, I found it really useful.
Thank you. Jade, I would like to hear from your end, because you're in an industry where human touch is really, really important. And as COVID struck and people had lost that human touch and everything went virtual, how did you adapt? I think you're on mute. Yeah.
We always balance what kind of products we should sell in human touch and what sell online. We still have every year we have around 40% of the transaction coming from online. The rest major still full our shops, because we see the customer behavior. High ticket jewelry, you definitely go to our shop to try it out before you buy it. So we try to mix the models. The customer may look for the information online first and then go to our shop to try it out. So like pre-booking, pre-trip, and also once they go to our shops, we have many technology in our shops in Hong Kong. Next time you go to our shop, not just look at the jewelry, look at the technology. We have we call it a smart tray. It's like a sensor. We measure how long you look at our jewelry, what piece of jewelry being sold to our customers. So these are information important for us. But this for the whole customer experience, we try to enhance it and not replaced by some too funny technology. So we need to balance it very well.
I think that's an important point that you brought out, Jade, in terms of balance. I'm just wondering, you know, a lot of the technology and advancements that you mentioned was to assist the day-to-day sales before COVID. Now, as you shifted that to the center and where digital is now at the center of your entire business processes, how did you actually work with the mindset changes, which I think Manlee was also talking about in terms of how to develop that right mindset?
I would say COVID-19 actually helped us to all internal staff to change their mindset. It's like I think in a human history, during the war stage, the technology went very fast. COVID-19, I would say, that's like everyone is thinking about survival mode. Everyone need to change themselves to adapt to the new environment. So I think most internal staff in the past, some may have their own traditional thinking. Right now, everyone think about what's the new way to do their own business. I think is like an acceleration of everyone looking at some more new digital way. Yeah, that's my comments in our shops. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'd like to move to a Q&A question that just popped up. And I think that is for Manlee. And I was actually going to ask her about this. Samsonite is all about travel. Now there is very little travel. Well, they are trying to open up travel desperately. So how do you actually change your business model, and how does it affect your sales model?
Yes, Samsonite indeed has a large percentage of travel products, but we have other brands as well. We have Tumi, we have High Sierra, Gregory, which is lifestyle backpack. Actually, it fares very well in the pandemic. And again, Tumi is more of a backpack product. So I think the overall product offering or strategy hasn't changed, but we have the luxury. Well, we have, of course, we are very badly impacted because a large chunk is the travel products, but we also have other products that kind of help us tremendously during this period. Okay, that's fine. And Alex, I'd just like to open that question to you. A lot of companies, I mean, they have their core product streams, but that has changed over the pandemic. How is, as a infrastructure at the back end, how are you actually working with these brands to actually shift their model to be much more agile?
I think the key thing that we see is the infrastructure has to be obviously digitized, and the processes have to be digitized as well. If we look at the amount of data that's moving around between applications, and it's about being able to manage that data and have it where it needs to be. So whether that be in a sort of core, digital core, which is processing that data, or is it at the edge? So I think the changes really, and the way that organizations have adapted, is they're pushing more things out to the edge where they need to be, where people are. And this is a trend that we see over many businesses in different regions. And they're building a hybrid core, which is, in a regional center. But the other, they might sort of create one digital core in one location, and then have edge nodes or edge compute in different geographies around the region. But there's definitely been a big increase in terms of cloud usage, more SaaS providers, and then people looking at, do I really need to, build and run my own applications? Where do I need to run them? How do I need to sort of interface with other parts of the chain? So it's a combination of things, and I see that a lot of the speed of adaptation or the speed of change is really dependent on the ability of the organization to be able to create and re-architect some of their existing processes. So it becomes increasingly complex if you're trying to use existing legacy applications, because they don't adapt very well to scaling and changing that easily. So the more agile your infrastructure is, the easier it is to adapt and to scale when you need capacity and when you need to reduce capacity as well.
That's a good point, Alex. So I'm just going to shift to Jade based on what Alex said in terms of enabling, because there was you mentioned early on, Jade, that you are looking at your employees as a sales channel, basically, because now your potential end customers are actually reaching out to your employees. And so your employees now the customer's front, no longer there is an edge to it. But how are you retooling them, and where does cloud infrastructure comes in?
I think right now most of our new projects run in cloud platform. So just like we work with few cloud vendors, like those social commerce. We originally we just start with one province in China, but suddenly we want to roll out to the whole country within just few days. So in the past, we need to buy the equipment. Right now, just enable some looks in the cloud platform. Then we can roll out fast for the whole country. I think we will not using the on-prem infrastructure. Instead, we have difficult to pick on-prem infrastructure now. We will all look at the cloud infrastructure first.
Okay. Thank you. And Manlee, is it the same for you? Are you looking more? Are you becoming more cloud first?
Yes, definitely. But e-commerce sites have always been on the cloud, and we use a SaaS platform. I would be surprised in the last 5 years anybody put in the e-commerce site on premise. So it's very elastic. So in that sense, it's not really a problem. But also, when you look at so it's not just the e-commerce, but also your backend as well, right? So I must say that in the past, a lot of things that we have on premise because of security concerns, but now we also building the hybrid solution so that make sure that we take advantage of the speed, but also have the security around it so that we don't have to worry too much.
Okay. And there's a question for you, Jade. How are you transforming Chow Tai Fook with e-commerce solutions so that you can reach out to overseas end customers? I guess you're looking at a global strategy or probably a regional strategy. Yeah, and where does digital play into this? I think
the first thing we will work with the local channel, e-commerce channel first, because the traffic go from there. In Hong Kong, we work with Hong Kong TV Mall. In China, all the big channels we work on. Amazon in US, we are working with them closely. And then the first step, definitely local channel. And then second, if we see the traffic go to certain large volume, we will move to our own channel later on. And then, but right now we prefer using our staff as the new channel to reach out our customers. So we will mix it into a few our own sites, our staff channel, and then the local big channel. So we start from the first one, and then staff, and then the own channel. This is our 3 steps approach for each countries.
Good luck. And Alex, I'd just like to pick your brains. We are looking at companies that are looking outward. We are probably working with different ecosystems. They are also rewiring their business model and sales model. I'm just looking from your perspective, how important is interconnections at this time?
Well, interconnection, really, we see it as, and this is from our internal studies, mentioned the Global Interconnection Index, but we've studied interconnection as a sort of a basis for digital transformation and the growth of the digital economy. And we've seen the growth of interconnection outpace the growth of internet and MPLS connection by a factor of 2. What we've seen over COVID, that's actually increasing. So interconnection really is a strategy going forward, because it means if I can directly connect to my partners, my business partners, my cloud and service providers, direct connection gives you security. It also gives you the ability to scale, particularly when you have a framework of a software-defined network over the top of it. That makes it a lot more flexible, and then you can programmatically scale, and you can also create bespoke connections to different partners as you add them in. The idea is when it's more flexible, software defined is always going to give you the advantage of the fact that you can create connections, scale connections, and break connections if you don't need them. What we've seen is that particularly for companies like airlines, they have been so much impacted by this. They're going back to their network service providers and say, hey, you know, we have this circuit that we provision. We no longer need it because we just don't have the need for this connection to this particular output that we're running. You know, we need to renegotiate, or we need to change that. So a lot of pressure for a lot of companies to be able to, you know, renegotiate or change their existing infrastructure. What we did some time ago is we put in a digital software-defined network we call Fabric, which connects all our data centers together. Now that gives you a lot of potential to be able to create connections, you know, from a portal or programmatically with APIs. And APIs are another aspect of digital transformation, because APIs are the glue that you know enables you to connect all these applications together and different data sets. You can actually interrogate and pull information out. So we see these sort of building blocks with interconnection being the base of it, and that's basically helped organizations scale and also adapt when there's a lot of change.
Okay, that's good. Jade, I know you nodded your head. I was just wondering, you mentioned that you'll be working with Amazon and you're looking at other platforms. How important is actually extensibility of your core business model through the use of APIs? And how do you see working partnership models being changed because of this?
Yeah, we work with banks on API integrations. We work with our suppliers, our whole supply chain on APIs. So even internal, we have API infrastructure across different systems. CTF is not just retail. We have our own factory, and also we source the rough diamond as well. So the whole supply chain, we have all API integrate with different parties. So it's we have our own API set to let our partners to work with us. We also, not just API, we use also blockchains on exchanging those information with our parties. So I would say it's like an information exchange across different channels. We need to embrace this kind of information so that we can evolve, use other new projects. Is a very key one. Not just API. API is just one of those. Yeah.
And you're using a blockchain to verify your diamonds, right? Is that one of the?
We in Hong Kong 2 years ago, we launched a blockchain GIA certifications for the diamond. So we're not giving hard copy to our customers. We log the 4C information in the blockchain. We recently launched a jewelry insurance. It's a very new in the market. So we work with Ping An Insurance using blockchain for the insurance applications, claim, all those process. We also work with one airline on point exchange. So when you buy our jewelry in our shops, we give you bonus point. You can exchange those bonus point to airline mileage right away. Unlucky you cannot find out, but it's a very good experience before the COVID-19. So we use API. Sometimes we still not think it is good and fast enough. We use other technology to enhance our customers' experience. This is what we're doing now.
Thank you. We have around 2 to 3 minutes. So quickly, I just want to, we've been talking about the business, we're talking about the infrastructure. But one thing, since this is a CDOTrends event, I'm just wanting to know how does it actually affect the work of a chief digital officer or a digital, what do you call, senior person or a leader. So maybe Manlee, you can enlighten us, how has your job changed now? Because now you're at the center of the business.
Well, I'm not a CDO. We don't have a CDO role, but I can speak as a technology leader. I think the role for technology leader has been changing for a decade or more. So it's not something new. But I think now a technology leader, you don't really just follow the trend of a technology trend, but you also have to look at a lot of other things, especially like e-commerce, digital marketing, and even macroeconomics and politics. So I think it's a very different requirement these days as a technology leader from the past. And with the adverse situation, we have to react very quickly. So it's very, very important to work with all the different departments so that will really help you to prioritize your limited resource or really much cut down resource. How can you deliver value and reduce the impact to the company?
Thank you, Manlee. And Jade, do you have 1 or 2 additions to that?
I think our roles still the same. Our salary still the same. I think, but I think we need to accelerate ourselves and support more departments on the transformations. We need to learn much faster and then bring in new idea to the whole company because we need to survive together. I think we are not just supporting more. Sometimes we need to create new service or product together using the latest technology. Like I would say, is like a digital product or digital service that we can offer to all our customers. So I would say from a passive mode to a bit more active mode to drive the changes. So that's I see the changes right now.
Okay. Thank you. And that's all. I've been told that time is up. I really appreciate it, Manlee, Jade, and Alex for joining and for your wisdom. We have some questions which we will probably forward to and Bob to take over.